Yowzer. Yowzer. Yowza. Um... I got jacuzzi and yakuza mixed up. It really got me in hot water with the Japanese. No, Japanese mafia, I should say. I always fuck up the punchline of those really bad dad jokes. On the move. On the move, yeah, buddy. Good to see you, man. Cruising around Eagle Rock. It's just a lovely, lovely day. A lot of, it's kind of like Gen X meets Boomer age group, like the 62-year-olds with really classic cars. Dressed pretty hip today, I gotta say. There's some thick, night coiffed hair and nice horn-rimmed glasses and beautiful trousers. Everybody looks pretty fit. Everybody's got a little kind of dad gut, but nothing too major. Oh, and there's some amateur skaters making a video, old school, with oh, check him out. He's got a video camera. He's shooting. Oh, he's trying to do rail slides. The video camera, like an old Sony Hi8 Digi cam. I wanted to talk about something that I encountered earlier today. I was going on a walk, and I was kind of having this visceral memory of my childhood. And I remembered what it was like just to kind of be myself. Be me. Just be me. And when you have a memory of what it's like, what it felt like to be you, like butterflies swirling around, just sort of that anticipation, that wonder, that blend of anxiety and excitement. Just being you. And I think when you're a little younger, you're exploring what it feels like to be yourself. And so much character comes out of that feeling. What it feels like to be truly yourself. Before you kind of become this, I don't know what happens in adulthood, you become this shopping list of thoughts that are all competing and vying for your attention. It's almost like a maze of like all these cross intersections of slavery. You become a slave to information and news and tasks and you forget about the mountains. You're in the intersection of the little streets, the cross section of the streets, and they're congested and crowded and hard to park, but you forget about the mountains that are unpopulated and just swelling out of this mayhem like islands. And you are the mountain, but you've forgotten who you are. Because you kind of, you got yourself wired. You know what I mean? Like you're on autopilot a little. You're not thinking about what it's like to be you anymore. Kids think about what it's like to be themselves. And they explore the world like live wires. And then what happens? What happens to that? Anyway, I'm kind of cruising up this hill here in Eagle Rock. I'm just kind of snaking around Eagle Rock right now. It's a really beautiful day. I'm going to go shopping in a little while, but I just thought I would take a tourcito, as my mom used to say. Take a little tourcito. Just kind of cruise it. It's Sunday. I'm doing some Sunday driving around Los Angeles. I'm just checking out how people who survived the fires are faring on this beautiful day. On a street, what street am I on here? Sheridan and Hill Drive. God, the palm trees are so tall here. These are like the great granddads. This row of palm trees. They're starting to kind of snake. Palm trees grow so straight, but then when they're really old, they start to do a little S-curve because they're so tall. Oh my God, these ones are like a 10-story building tall. They could have easily made... Oh, that probably wouldn't work. I was thinking telephone poles could have been palm trees, but I'll bet you the electrical currents just attaching directly to a trunk would just do something like stunt its growth or give it some kind of palm tree cancer, whatever. Probably mutate it. Oh, here we are, cruising around, philosophizing a little, just kind of thinking to myself about character, because I think, there was a filmmaker I was inspired by in the late 90s, and it was a guy, he was on the fringe of the stop-motion community, but didn't really work with all of us, he was trying to kind of break in, and he was doing some internships on a show in the Bay Area called Phantom Investigators. I think he interned in the puppet fabrication department. And he made a film, and his name was Don Thomas. Don Thomas. And he didn't quite break in all the way. And he was kind of felt like a little bit of an outcast. And he was kind of coming at the scene sort of from his own perspective. And I think he kind of got interested in stop motion a little later than a lot of the kids that had just studied animation in college and just, rammed right into a career. So many of us were in our 20s, our mid to late 20s. And in the Bay Area during that time, Phantom Investigators was a TV show. And Stephen Holman was the director, sort of like the lead writer, director. Josephine was his wife, and Josephine Huang. She's a astoundingly good animator. And so she was like the animation kind of supervisor, and he was like the director. It was a good little team. And they had a company called Wholesome Productions, I think it was called. Wholesome Products, Inc. or something. And Steven's still kind of like he does a lot of sort of fine art at this point. But he does these really interesting things with color. He mixes different types of color together. And he'll put like a purple right next to like a pink or an orange or something that's just gonna, these bright colors that just did this like electrical dance with one another. Alrighty, you going straight? Yeah, no, you're turning. But Don Thomas made this film, and it was a lover spat between two guys. It was like an argument I think it was like between the kitchen and the living room. It's been so long. But one was like a rooster, and the other one was a dog. So it was like these humanized animals. And Don just put it, you could tell he stuck it all in this piece. And it was so inspirational. Don Thomas was a gay guy living, I think, in the Castro neighborhood of San Francisco. And, so he was kind of like write what it felt very personal. And I think he had a background in theater, so it felt very theatrical. But it was this really great chunk of dialogue. He probably, I don't know how he recorded it, but it just had this real, like, honest, truthful, well-acted, situation between two people. And they were being kind of like haughty and petty and, just going at each other's throats a little. And as you do, when you're in a loving, long-term, intimate relationship, half of trying to make relationships work is getting into fights and arguments and working through those, feeling out the edges of each other's personalities. And anyway, this film came to mind just now because I was thinking about character and Don Thomas's film felt like a character study, like a really intense character study. The way he shot it was fascinating. It was sort of like these like handheld camera, a lot of like kind of swish pans. Like he would do these singles, like, "Oh yeah, well, you left the dishes in the sink again," And it's like, and then the camera would swish over to the other character. "Give me a break, I've been doing dishes all week," or what, It wasn't about dishes, but it was like something like that. And God, it's been, almost 30 years since I've seen this film. It's like 25 years. But I was so inspired by it. The characters had these open-close, hinged jaw type mouths. I think the rooster maybe had replacement beaks. But it was, everything was rough around the edges, very handmade, but cartoony. Great shapes, great silhouettes, great poses, really great acting, and just everything was just touched, every frame, very, like, you could just see the work that was put into the sculpting of these animated performances. Like he did not phone anything in. It was all like he was touching the camera and the characters and I don't know if the lights were moving, but I think it was just like sun poured through a window. But he had a simple set, two characters, and this just lovely little scene. Felt like a Cassavetes film, like Faces or A Woman Under the Influence or something. It was just like this hard-hitting, real slice of humanity, but done in this playful, puppety, kind of cartoony aesthetic. This just so rich and textural and I've been looking for that film. I wondered if somebody ever posted it. But, before Don could really make it big, he died. He committed suicide. And, one never knows why something like that happened. But it's hard not to blame yourself because I wonder if the community had embraced him more and seen how talented he was. I know he applied for a position animating. And he just, I guess, he really wasn't up to snuff, I mean, he didn't have enough professional experience under his belt. But I thought he had the chops to jump in there. And I was sorry to see that he didn't make the team. But he was on the crew, and he was in the trenches learning, and he probably learned some really exquisite craft tips, from the puppet fabrication department on that show was really amazing. But the team was fantastic, and I don't know why Don Thomas popped into my head. I think that his take was one of those rare brushes with genius. His take on stop motion. I thought to myself watching his film, I want to see more of this. I want to see more of this. Because stop motion does certain things better than any other medium. And it's really hard to describe what those things are because they're so complex. 2D does things better than any other medium in its own way. And CG does things better in its own way than any other medium. Don't try to make stop motion look like CG. Don't try to make stop motion look like 2D. You can lean in both of those directions, but let stop motion be what it is. If stop motion is having an identity crisis and is trying to be something that it isn't, it doesn't bode well. It ends up not being itself. And I think the strength of stop motion is that it's such a fragile, delicate, precious, important space that's created. And there's so many good intentions that are tucked in there. If anybody has Don Thomas's short film, please put it on YouTube and share it with the world. I don't know what it's called. I don't know how long it is. There's a handful of people that probably know what I'm talking about. I think Anthony Scott knows what I'm talking about. I think probably Suzanne Twining knows what I'm talking about. Probably Jeff Riley might know. Chuck Duke might know. There were people that were in that building working on that show that knew Don. And Don is a special, special part of stop motion history for me. He's like this shooting star across the horizon of stop motion. And Gerald Howard might know. Anyway, if somebody has that film on VHS or knows where I can get it, just contact me. I'd love to see it again. I really would love for the world to see it. It's a lesson. I think it's a really strong lesson for the stop motion community to be reminded, because people put their essence in their short films. And, it's sad that I can't remember the name of this film or exactly, more details about it. But the feeling of it left this indelible impression on me. And I just would like to celebrate that and just remind people that the more you are like you are yourself, the more the world around you benefits. And it might not feel like there's any purpose for you being here, but there is. There's profound purpose in everyone being here right now. And not only being here, but sharing, deeply sharing of yourself with the world. Because the world is trying to shut that voice down and quiet the connection between you, the feeling of you, and the expression of that feeling.